good afternoon to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us for our second webinar in this series, Steps for a Healthier Heart. My name is Emily Marison, and I'm a family and consumer sciences educator for Ohio State University Extension in Coshocton County. And with me today,
I'm Lisa Barlage, and I'm a family consumer science educator in Ross County, which is Chillicothe.
we do want to let you know that this presentation is available in alternate media. So if at any point you would like to see something in another form, we're happy to accommodate that for you. And also, we are a university that does programs for any and all. And we may have in this presentation some trade names or product names for different foods. It's not implied that we're endorsing these in any way. These are only being used for educational purposes. So our goals for today, again, thank you for joining us for this webinar, are to discuss the foods that you should eat more or maybe less of to prevent coronary artery disease or heart disease. Some of you probably joined us for part 1, which was a couple of weeks ago, where we learned more about steps to reduce your risk of heart disease. If you are interested in that recording, we can provide that to you. Many of you that had registered received that recording. And if you, again, would like to have that, we can provide that to you. You're probably already doing many things. Hopefully a lot of you are participating in our email challenge right now and have been learning things along the way the last 3 weeks. So today we're going to cover some things that are maybe a little different that you haven't heard yet, specifically focused on our food and nutrition.
At this point, we're going to have a poll for you asking how many servings of fruits and vegetables do you eat in a typical day? And this is just you. It doesn't mean what you think the research says. Just go ahead and mark what you personally do. So we're getting close to having everyone. I think we will go ahead and stop at that. It looks like we're anywhere from 1 or 2 to 5 or 6, with most of you in that 3 to 4 range. So over 50% in the 3 to 4 range. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So we want to continue on the message that was started 2 weeks ago with focusing on some steps that you can personally do to improve your heart health or cardiovascular disease risk. And the first of these is just to eat another vegetable every day. So whatever you thought of when you thought on that prior question, just add one more. Doesn't have to be anything crazy, just one more. We'd love for you to have a variety of colors because all of the different fruits and vegetables that you eat have benefits by varying color. We'd love for you to eat some high potassium foods. So that might include sweet potatoes, tomatoes, red peppers, avocado, zucchini, asparagus, spinach, even white potatoes are high in potassium. And they are critical for maintaining a regular heart rhythm. And low potassium can actually cause heart palpitations or irregular heartbeat. You may wonder though, if I can hurt myself by not having enough, can I also hurt myself by having too much? And the answer would be yes, but usually medical professionals will see that from someone who has done something with a supplement. So actually eating the food in your diet is typically not going to cause that problem for you. We would also love for you to eat lots of leafy greens and to eat those tomatoes. And you may notice that tomatoes are great when they are actually heated, which might be a little different than we often think of fruits and vegetables. Our second step is to eat another fruit every day. So we've added one more veggie. Let's add another fruit every day. Again, we'd love for you to vary those colors. So just like our vegetables, you can get different phytonutrients and they will protect you against chronic diseases. We would love for you to have the potassium foods again. So potassium foods in fruits would be bananas, citrus fruits, raisins, apricots, and honeydew melon are all good examples. And berries are some of the very best foods that we can eat. Not only are they high in antioxidants, which protect against oxidative stress, and you often have heard of them being a great cancer preventer, and they will reduce our bad or LDL cholesterol if we eat a diet in good in fruits and berries. So when we're thinking about our health, we want to have about 4 to 6 ounces to count as a serving. So when you were adding those servings up that you eat earlier, think about that. And different foods, one serving is going to be a different amount. So 1 cup of raw or cooked veggies or fruits, a half a cup of legumes. So this is some of our beans, and something like leafy greens, it's going to be more like a cup, 2 cups, 3 cups if you want it to count as a serving. And our goal is going to be to eat 1.5 to 2 cups of fruit every day and 2 to 3 cups total of vegetables every day. And a benefit may be for you to think about having 5 or 6 over the course of the day. So that is 1 with breakfast, 2 with lunch, 2 with dinner, and maybe 1 included in a snack at some point in the day. And I love this photo because it just reminds us that fruit is actually a very easy fast food. It already comes in a package. It's already in a serving size, and all you have to do is wash it and it's ready to go.
Our third step for heart health is to make your breakfast count. So as you look at this list of some of the suggestions, whole grains are higher in fiber, which may help you reduce LDL or the bad cholesterol and decrease your risk of heart disease. A goal for a healthy diet is to have 25 to 30 grams of dietary fiber per day. So it's a good idea to get started on that at breakfast time. Most Americans currently consume around 15 grams, so we should probably double the amount of fiber that we're consuming. Gradually add this if you're one of those that doesn't get typically enough fiber in your diet. You want to gradually add this and make sure to increase your water intake to keep your digestive system running smoothly. And the pun is intended there. Make sure that you look for the word whole when it comes to grains, because there's other terms that can be used on labels like multigrain. Whole grain means that the whole grain is there. There is a symbol here that could be used, or you may find on a package that it just, and I may need to stop sharing my screen or have my background. It may just call it out on the label itself, or you can definitely find that by looking at the nutrition facts. You can include whole wheat, brown rice, oats, rye, barley, quinoa, buckwheat. So there's so many things to choose from. And again, not necessarily multigrain, because it could be called multigrain and not really be a lot of whole grain content. It's a great idea to start your day with a breakfast of 3 food groups. So I know one of my favorite breakfasts is to start with berries, like Lisa was just talking about, and then add Greek yogurt because it's higher in protein. And I use plain and non-fat for that. And then add in some whole grains with some whole grain granola. It's a great way to start my breakfast with different food groups all in the same bowl. Make sure that you check the package on labeled foods, because this can be where we introduce higher sugar content, more sodium, and we're probably going to have less nutrient dense food, so less nutrients per calorie in that food. And they rarely contain those fruits and vegetables that we were just encouraged to add into our diet. So it might take a little more planning, but plan to add some of these things to your breakfast, and then they'll seem just as convenient if you already kind of pre-prepared them on your own. The fourth step to heart health is to eat protein-rich legumes. So beans, eating beans as a part of your heart healthy diet and lifestyle may help improve your blood cholesterol, and that's a leading cause of heart disease. We learned that in our presentation a couple of weeks ago. Adding beans to your diet may help you feel full as well due to their high fiber content. So another way to get our fiber, and it helps with digestion. One thing to keep in mind here though is look for no salt added beans when you can. I know oftentimes in the past we would say you might have to look in the organic section for this, but more often there are salt-free or reduced salt options. So this is a label. Again, it's starting to disappear, I think, because of my background, but easily called out on the front. But make sure you do pay attention, because sometimes it may say lower sodium or reduced sodium, and that really means compared to their normal product. If their normal product contains a whole lot of sodium, then reduced sodium may not even be as low as another brand's regular sodium. So pay attention to that as you look through the nutrition facts. You could consider a snack of hummus or roasted chickpeas to increase your protein-rich bean consumption. So beans don't have to just be at a meal. They could be used as a snack as well. And another great idea is to think about doing a meatless Monday. So if meat is typically a big part of your diet and every meal usually contains meat, we're not asking you to cut meat out completely by any means, but consider at one meal a week to use beans instead. There are ways to modify recipes so that you can replace meat with beans, even in tacos or chili, by putting in lots of great beans and vegetables as well. Now we have a second poll question for you. We would like to test your fish knowledge. Which of the following in this list are fatty fish? And you can choose all that you think apply. So I'll give you a hint. There, more than one of these is a fatty fish. Ooh, we've got a lot of variety that's coming in. That's good. I kind of gave it away with one of these because we have a picture of it on the slide. So for those of you that are still voting, and you know what that one is, you can at least get that one right. Okay, I'll give you just a couple more seconds to make your final decisions. And we'll go ahead and end the poll. So you are right on with salmon and tuna. Good job on the tuna. I think the third one may have thrown a few folks off. So trout is a fatty fish as well. And we'll go on. So salmon, tuna, trout, orange roughy, we didn't have that one on the list, but that as well as herring and mackerel are all fatty fish. And they're loaded with omega-3 fatty acids. This is one type of polyunsaturated fat. So we think about different types of fats. It can be especially beneficial for heart health. Eating this type of food can decrease blood pressure and total cholesterol and decrease the risk of coronary artery disease or heart disease. It may also result in lower depression and protect against Alzheimer's disease and dementia. So lots of benefits to incorporating fatty fish into our diet. Now, for some of you that checked some of those other fish, we are by no means saying that these other fish are not good for you. Really, it depends on how we're preparing it, though. So I know this time of year, there may be a lot of community fish fries that are going on. Definitely coating it in batter or breading and frying it is not going to be the most healthy way to eat it. That could be something that you do on a special occasion, or one suggestion would be that you could, because we like to support these things in our community for sure, but split a meal with someone else rather than eating that whole meal on your own. Just keeping in mind that those extra added calories, and it's certainly not what we would want in our diets if we're taking these steps to heart health. The ideal would be to have 2 servings or more of fatty fish per week. And remember too that poly and mono unsaturated fats, when you're looking at that nutrition facts label, it will call out poly and mono. And those are the good fats to eat when we're cooking. So these are usually the ones that are going to be oils at room temperature. Things like canola oil, olive oil, safflower, peanut oil, sunflower, corn oil. So these are the things that we would encourage you to use as your fats as you're cooking. Hey, Lisa.
As we move ahead with our 6th step, we just want to remind you to have a handful of nuts or seeds as part of that heart healthy diet. And it is your average person's handful of nuts, not my 6'3" brother-in-law who has a big, huge palm. I would love to eat that many nuts, but I'm getting a lot of extra calories. So just keep in mind that it is an average person's handful, or if you're counting, about 23 almonds, around a quarter of a cup is a serving. And the nuts that are especially good for us, or seeds, would be walnuts, almonds, pistachios, even pumpkin seeds, macadamia nuts, pecans, and even peanuts, which are actually a legume, but we're going to throw them in the nut category. We would love for you to have these as a snack, but of course, again, we're going to push that low sodium or no salt added. If you try a no salt version and you think, oh, I just can't handle this, I'm used to buying a can of salted nuts, then you might want to consider mixing the two to begin with. So start with a can of salted and a can of unsalted, mix them. Over time, you'll train your palate to be less used to that salt. Again, we're going to do those meatless meals, and we can think about adding them for crunch to things like salads. Our 7th step that we would love for you to think about is to consider your drinks. Green tea can be a great choice in your heart health. The research is a little bit inconclusive. There's positives and negatives, but it is something that may lower your LDL and your total cholesterol and even reduce your blood pressure. And we would love for you to have that tea not be from a bottle, but to be something that you've steeped. So whether it's loose tea or a tea bag, it is going to be you preparing the tea, not getting it out of a bottle. We also would love for you to be watching your caffeine. For a number of people, a late day caffeine may impact their sleep. And for some people, will actually increase their blood pressure. So for optimum heart health, we'd want to limit or reduce our caffeine. We also want to consider the calories and fat grams that may be in some drinks. I'm thinking the lattes and the frappuccinos and those kind of things. you can get an extra 500, even more calories. I was looking at a shamrock shake today that had about 800 calories in it if you bought the large version. So look for one that you can make your own. Ask for the skinny version. Ask them to leave the whipped topping off the top. Any of those kind of things, or even consider cutting back on how often you have one. And just consider that all of those, if you're getting them from takeout, their cost is going to add up too. So that could be hurting your pocket.
Now we'd like to share a couple of recipes with you to demonstrate how easy it can be to put these fruits and vegetables into our diets in some fun ways for you, and if you have family members that you're preparing for as well. So the first that we'll look at is called the Green Monster Smoothie. And we will share these recipes with you so that you will have them. But I will go through just what our smoothie contents are. So we're going to have some fruit. It could be green grapes, or you could use pineapple, banana and yogurt, spinach, skim milk, and some ice cubes. So just a few pointers in this. I mentioned Greek yogurt earlier, but consider using some light Greek yogurt, or fat-free and added sugar-free Greek yogurt. And even if you get that, you could always add just a tiny bit of vanilla on your own if you can't find the light kind, because the flavored varieties oftentimes will have added sugar, and that sugar can add up pretty quickly. It's just unneeded carbohydrates, especially since we're adding in our own fruit for sweetness too. If you cut your banana into chunks, you can freeze those ahead of time, and that will help cut down on the amount of ice really that you need to add as well. And you could do that same thing with grapes. Grapes are super easy to freeze. It's a good idea. I think it's a fantastic thing to do with those bananas that are just about, I know we have debates in our house about how long bananas are good, but the ones that are not quite the best maybe for eating anymore, but they're definitely not rotten. They're not ready to throw away. So just cut those up, put them in a freezer bag, and then you can use them the next time in your smoothie. You could also do this with the spinach as well. If you freeze the spinach, it kind of will wilt down a little bit, but it's super easy to incorporate. And it will definitely mix in, and it just gets covered really with these other flavors. So it's a great way to hide vegetables and enjoy spinach if you're not a big spinach fan.
Another recipe that we wanted to share with you is a carrot, pineapple, or zucchini muffin. And the ingredients, originally, it was to taste a little bit kind of like a carrot cake, if you want to have that sort of thought in mind. So it was a shredded carrot, although my coworkers and I have adapted it so that, especially in the summertime when zucchini is on hand, we now use zucchini, a cup of crushed pineapple with juice, and that's going to be about half of a can. And so what I usually do is put the other half in the freezer, and then it becomes a smoothie in a week or two. Some canola oil, some cold water, distilled vinegar. The distilled vinegar becomes a rising agent in this recipe. You're going to use half whole wheat flour and half all-purpose flour. If you would use all whole wheat flour, it's not going to raise as much. So that's the reason for the half and half, but you are increasing your whole grains. It's got some light brown sugar in it. And I've also made the recipe with blended brown sugar, and it works just fine if you're diabetic and you're trying to make those cuts. Got a little baking soda, cinnamon, and pumpkin pie spice. You can always put those heart-healthy nuts in that we already mentioned. And the next picture shows you kind of the mixture. So there we've got our cutting board with our ingredients. We kind of mix it up so it looks just like any other muffin mix. Bake it in the oven, and you come out with some really tasty muffins that can be a snack or a breakfast. I love to do these in the tiny muffin pans. If you're a person who has those little tiny muffin pans, I love that size myself, and they become either a lunch or breakfast food. So I know we've had some great chat going on. We do have one more poll question. So go ahead and we will answer that poll. And then we can also discuss if there are any of the questions that we didn't get answered. And I know we've had some great discussion. Fortunately, we have a couple coworkers who've been quickly answering your questions. Have I tried the recipe using unsweetened applesauce in place of the brown sugar? Not in place of the brown sugar. As you notice, the oil was already greatly reduced. I think it was only a couple tablespoons of oil versus the traditional, like a traditional zucchini bread has, I believe, a whole cup of oil in it. So it's a lot of oil. So this is already greatly reduced that. I did not try to um, replace it for the brown sugar, although like I said, I did try Splenda and it worked just great. Some people, I made both versions for a group and they honestly like the Splenda version better than the brown sugar version, some people. We will send out a little recipe sheet. So I don't think I mentioned that earlier, but we have a little recipe sheet that we will send everybody a recording probably tomorrow. We'll send that recording out, but yet this week we'll send a recording with the recipe sheet and the link for if you want to listen to the recording again. So we will be sending that out with the information on the recipes. Yeah, somebody says they never used grapes in smoothies, and you can use grapes in smoothies. You just need to make sure that you get that skin chopped up. That outside skin can be a little bit tough, and of course, you don't want it to be one with seeds.
Okay, it looks like most of you have shared with us if you learned new information. We'll leave this open just a couple seconds longer for any last minute participation. And we do want to share that there are some resources available. We encourage you, if you do not already get our Live Healthy, Live Well blog, you can visit that anytime, but you can also sign up to get notifications when new blogs post, which is about twice a week. And we just have a variety of different healthy living topics on there. And then we're also on Facebook. So if you participate in Facebook, we'd love to have you come find us there. And Lisa, would you like to tell them about our text message program that we offer?
Yes, we have a text message program where we send out twice a week wellness text. We usually use the Remind app, but you don't have to download that app if you don't want to. And I will put that link in our message when we send it out, but it is just twice a week and they're just short wellness messages. And then we also just mentioned the university's Just Breathe campaign. If you are an Ohio State employee, you might be familiar with that. We did have a couple of people ask about veggies that you can put in smoothies, and one person mentioned kale, and I do know both kale and spinach work really well. You can put carrots in, but you need to get them really ground up real well. I know some people will put things like celery or it depends on the kind of blender that you have. So if you have one of those fancy high-speed blenders, you can put almost anything in there. If you just have a traditional blender that you bought, normal low-cost blender, it's not going to, that's where the kale and the spinach work well because they're going to chop up real easy.
Lisa, there was a question. Oh, I'm sorry. There was a question about something substituting a pineapple in the recipe. Somebody's allergic to that. Have you used something else in the recipe?
I would think that would be the case where, I don't know, I think like a chopped peach or probably the applesauce that somebody asked about earlier would also work. Or you could just put your bananas in there. I mean, I think anything. You may have to add a little bit of liquid though, because it did ask for the pineapple with the juice. So you may need to add a little bit of additional liquid if you're doing that.
So you could use orange juice instead. That would be fine.
Mm-hmm. And as our coworker suggested, maybe some mango if you want to do the tropical version. Yeah. Great idea.
Somebody else also asked if you can use purple grapes.
It won't be quite as green, maybe, but that spinach goes a long way to make things green.
Mm-hmm. The only thing I always caution people is about putting strawberries with spinach, because you will get brown smoothie. And so, you know, for kids, that is definitely not going to be appealing to them to look at it. So just keep in mind the colors that you blend. But I love the lighter colored fruits and then mix that spinach in there. It is just one of my favorites.
And then Lisa, there was one more question in there about using gluten-free flour in the recipe.
What a good idea that somebody says that that's a poop smoothie and then their kids will eat it. That's probably very true. I had not thought of that. And in a way, that's really true, because we put all those nutrients in there. We're just going to make it move through their system. We do want to remind everybody that on March 10th, we have our third section of this series. So I know some of you probably have to get back to lunch. And we do want to just remind you that on the 10th of March, we will have that third session. Misty, what was the other question that we need to cover?
About gluten-free flour in the muffin recipe.
The only thing I know about gluten-free is that sometimes you have trouble with rising. I don't know if my coworkers have other suggestions.
No, but somebody did put in the comment section that they are gluten-free, and if you use a cup for a cup flour, it should be fine. So I also am not experienced with gluten-free. So thank you, Mary, for putting that in there.
Yeah, there's some gluten-free flours have gotten much better, I think, in the last decade as far as their performance when it comes to baking, especially. I know I have some friends that have been mixing their own for years, and they have started to find some that are already packaged that work well. And the nice thing with tiny muffins is that you don't need as much, right? As far as that rising power and everything. So I think it's a fantastic idea to make them as little tiny muffins.
And then there are two questions in the questions. One says, have issues with diverticulitis, berries, seeds, nuts, roughage. And then the other one is, how many calories are in the recipe? Oh.
I think our handout that we have has so when we send that to you, it has the nutrient information in it. So we'll make sure that is there. The smoothies, it's going to have natural sugar in it, but we haven't done any added sugars. And the muffins, I know that is an OSU recipe, so we do have the nutrient information for it. So we'll make sure that that's on the handout.
I think in response to the diverticulitis question, just keep in mind that we gave several steps today, and we're certainly not saying that if you don't have berries or don't have seeds and nuts in your diet, that means you can't be doing other things. So, focus on the foods that work well with your body and your system, and you're going to be able to handle. And it's okay to avoid those things that would cause you pain, obviously.
That is a really smart idea. We had some really great discussion today. That is very nice to see.
Somebody
We
did
have-
ask about putting ground flax into smoothie or muffins.
Our coworker Amy has shared in the chat that you can add ground flax to your smoothie to get it more filling. And I know some people do put it in muffins. I have not tried it with this particular recipe, but a lot of times just adding a little bit, can make it work. Or add a little bit and then add a little bit more.
I know I put chia seeds actually sometimes on my little concoction, which is kind of smoothie-like. I mean, I basically just stir it up instead of putting it into a blender. But yeah, chia seeds are another great option, packed full of protein and good fiber.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. Hopefully we will see all of you again in 2 weeks.